This week, we'll be speaking to Brother Khizar from East London Mosque. We'll be, inshallah, finding out from him what is East London Mosque up to, what did they do in the first lockdown, how different or how difficult is it the second lockdown, and we will be also, if time allows, we'll be finding out about different projects, if possible, East London Mosque are involved with. Brother Khizar, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing, brothers?
Alhamdulillah. This is Qamarul Islam here. Thank you very much for giving us your valuable time. We have also been joined by Ustadh Abu Haneefah, who is with me in the studio listening to our conversation. And I'm assuming this is an interesting conversation we'll be having. So if he has any input, we'll surely be engaging with him. Now, let's start with you. Masajids, in fact, all masajids, as far as I'm aware, are closed. Now, obviously, there is no clear guidance when it comes to from the government whether we should close it or not, because it clearly says for individual prayers, their place of worships can be open. Now, in this second lockdown, how is East London Mosque coping?
Well, alhamdulillah, we are in the situation that we're in. It is a difficult situation, especially for all masajid everywhere, because financially many masajid are run through the grassroots, that we are funded through the communities, and all our projects are funded through the community. Alhamdulillah, East London Mosque is one of the largest, the busiest mosque in Western Europe, and as such we run a lot of projects. We've got a high school, we've got a primary school, we've got a nursery, we've got all the religious services, the circumcision clinic, marriage services, you name it. And of course, all of that is funded through the public. And because of lockdown and because of, social distancing and not being able to operate as normal, I think all masajid, I'm not speaking for East London Mosque here, but all masajid have been hit financially pretty bad. But alhamdulillah, despite all of that, we at East London Mosque, and I know many other masajid, are continuing to serve the communities the best they can.
Thank you for that. And I'd like to remind our viewers, if any of the organization or Muslim organization in particular, institution or masajid are doing any good work that you would like to share and get it aired, then please call in using the contact details displayed on your screen. Now, secondly, you've mentioned, Brother Khizar, about the financial impact. Now, surely it has impacted a lot of your projects. So how are you coping with it in this second lockdown?
Alhamdulillah, Allah provides, and we are really seeing this come through in this second lockdown, as despite having a restriction of funds, we are still managing to serve our community the best way possible. Our food bank is still up and running. We are still trying to help those that are most vulnerable. We are still providing imams counseling services, as well as women sisters counseling services. And on top of that, we're running digital programs that even if people can't physically be in the masajid, they can still somehow feel connected by still engaging with our imams. On top of that, our evening madrasas are still providing digital classes and other such services we're trying to keep alive and keep on serving the community, because that's ultimately what a masjid does. And we're doing our best to do that.
Now, in 20 seconds, between the first lockdown and second lockdown, is there any change or is it still the same?
I think the main change is that there's a bit more kind of familiarity with the situation. Now we know what to expect. We kind of have rough dates of how long this will continue for and how to operate these services. Whereas in the first lockdown, I think a lot of it was kind of trial and error. We were just seeing what we could do with the resources we have. But now, because we know what to expect, we can offer these same services with greater confidence. If anything, I think because even from the government's perspective, they have extended the furlough scheme and such. So economically, people are slightly bit more assured than they were in the beginning of the first lockdown.
Thank you. And a final question to you with regards to janazah. Biggest concern, because when masajid are closed, especially a mosque like East London Mosque, are you doing any funeral services at this moment in time?
I think the funeral services are extremely restricted. As far as I'm informed, that the washing and bathing is continuing, the ghusl services. But how the janazah prayers go, that is very restricted at the moment. And we're not sure how that will go in the future.
Not a problem, inshallah. And finally, if anyone wants to find out more details, what's the best method of contact?
best method of contact is getting through to us via email at
Thank
info@eastlondonmosque.org.uk
you.
or our website, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Ustadh Abu Hanifa wanted to join in. We'll give the space to him. Yes, Ustadh Abu Hanifa.
Thank you, Brother Khizar. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Was it a premature decision to close the masajid? The announcement was made very quickly that the masajid were to be closed, whereas the actual guidance from government was that it could be open for individual prayer. So why did the masajid take that step to close their doors to the public?
Brother Khizar.
Yes, I think that's a very good question. In truth, really, it does fall down to how it would be managed, really, because if you open the space for individual prayer, you can't stop people from coming in and forming their own jama'ah. And of course, that would break government guidelines, but at the same time, no Muslim, no masjid committee, no volunteer wants to be put in a position where they're actually breaking up a jama'ah, which is called is a prayer. No one wants to be in that position. So altogether, we think that since it's a short time period, it might be better just to close it down for that time.
I mean, my experience is that the masajid were actually one of the few places that were observing the guidelines. You know, you would see that people were, a good meter or two apart. There was hand sanitation, there was prayer mats, there were face masks, there were even plastic bags for shoes. You know, I found that the masajid were one of the very few places which in our society were actually taking the restrictions seriously. And my other concern is that the salah is one of the sha'air of Islam, one of the symbols of Islam. Is there a danger here that, just closing the doors of the masjid, it was a little bit too easy and a little bit too much of a knee-jerk reaction, because we've now lost one of the main symbols of Islam in our society, even if it's only for a temporary period?
Brother Khizar?
I think that's a really good point. And like you said, Chef, it is a symbol of Islam, and it is. But I think because of the uncertainty of what this holds, as well as the current government administration in place and how they are running things, I think many masjid committees want to be extra cautious and not do anything that might put Muslims at large in the media, or put them as the sole focus of attention, as not listening to guidelines. I think there's an element of preserving the image of Islam and showing that we are, in fact, valuing life. We are valuing and preserving life in a society or at large where Muslims are largely viewed at, or even have been blamed for much of COVID, despite how we see that many Muslims had isolated in Ramadan and in Eid. But in other cases where there were other festivals, it wasn't the case for non-BAME community members who weren't isolating very clearly, whether it was the beachgoers and in other situations. So I think it is a very tricky thing, and it's really hard. But I think the masjid committee saw that maybe preserving the image of Islam might have some benefit in this case.
Thank you ever so much for that. And I'd like to also thank Imam Abu Hanifa for your valuable contribution. Brother Khizar, I'll have to let you go, inshallah. Thank you ever so much for your valuable time. And inshallah, I look forward to speaking to you soon again.
Likewise. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum salam. Barakallah feek.